What's up, everybody? Wes, Dead Air Knife here with Always.
Typical Lydia.
Today's show, we're going to be doing the 2024 documentary found footage classic Shelby Oaks.
I had a bet with myself that you were going to do dog noise, and I fucking won.
I tried to make sure that I wasn't just howling at the moon, because I promised we're not doing howling at the moon anymore, even if this is not technically a werewolf film. This is a demonic, these are hellhounds, but they sounded like coyotes to me, even though they're also not coyotes.
They did. Apparently, according to a, internet commenter on YouTube on Dark Mind podcast who covered some of the original footage, they said that this is exactly what a pack of coyotes sounds like when they have a kill and they're announcing to the rest of their pack, come and eat.
When I was in Arizona last year on vacation, we were at an Airbnb that was little more than a trailer out in the middle of the desert. And in the dead of night, you could just hear coyotes, packs of coyotes, just yipping and yowling and chattering with each other. And it sounded precisely like this, to the point in which at the beginning of the film, when we get going and we first start hearing those noises, I just assumed that the cabin was completely surrounded by coyotes.
And yeah, it's a scary thing. Take the paranormal elements, because we'll get to the paranormal elements of all that and the found footage elements. But it is striking how that's exactly what it sounded like. And I got scared for them for the moment, right? Because, I'd woken up as a kid hearing horrible sounds out there, and I wouldn't want to hear those as an adult, especially if you're kind of on edge because you're creeping around, parts unknown, you're a paranormal person.
I used to get really scared of the sound of cats fighting below my bedroom window when I was a kid. And I don't know whose cats. See, we had cats growing up, but they were indoor cats for the most part. They would go out sometimes, but we would never leave them out at night. These cats would get into fights underneath my bedroom window. And when cats are mad at each other, they make horrific noises. And it genuinely used to make my blood run cold when I was a little kid, because no one explained to me ever, oh, cats make these horrific, horrible yowling noises when they're pissed off at each other and they're being territorial. I had to learn that from hearing it myself. And when you're little, cat, that's not cute.
No, I heard wild cats, probably a cougar or something, outside one night, and I ran 3 a.m. to my grandmother's room, screaming and crying because there was, in my mind, a little girl is outside and she's lost and someone's doing something to her. That's what I heard. It was terrifying.
I've heard the call of a big cat too, and that was when I was staying up late. I was doing a puzzle at my cottage and the rest of my family had all gone to bed, and I'd gotten this puzzle for my birthday and I wanted to put it together. And so I hear this god-awful sound that sounded like a child wailing, and again, scared the shit out of me. And so I ran into my bedroom and just tried to go to sleep, and oh, I didn't hear that, but I'm definitely not sitting out in the living room anymore.
So scary. And they did it right, and it's not an animal attack movie whatsoever, but it was one of the more effective points that put you on edge in the audience's seat while we're in the guise of a found footage film. Because spoiler alert, it's not found footage film. It's as found footage as Blair Witch is, as any found footage film, right? But this one does exercise the conceit that it was indeed behaving like a found footage film, not only as we're watching it today, but for fucking years previous. You hadn't heard of this film before. It's a Lydia pick. Let's get that out of the way. I stumbled upon it, like, a week before bringing it to Wes's attention on Amazon. I'd never heard of it before, and I like Mike Flanagan's work, not only because 'cause I'm a Stephen King fan, 'cause I do, I think he does good films. He's not always hitting the mark for me, but he does good work. So when I saw he was attached to it, I was like, "Well, shit, I gotta watch this." I'm very curious that he's doing the the Godfather thing with other filmmakers. I really like that. So, yeah, blind watched it, hadn't heard of it, didn't know the guy behind it, the writer. All I knew is that it had an interesting one sheet and Mike Flanagan was attached. I'm in.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat, except I knew even less. I didn't even know Mike Flanagan was attached to it until I had already turned on the movie. I
Yeah.
really went by your recommendation for doing it for the show. We were having a brainstorming session, dear listeners, if you must know, about the plotting out the next batch of episodes about films that we're going to do. And I was a little hoggish, if you will, just putting my slop down. I recommended a lot of movies because I had made a list about stuff that I'd been thinking about. And then, but Lydia was very excited about this Shelby Oaks movie, asked if I had heard of it. I had not, and was very insistent. And, Lydia's not the most insistent, they kind of let me have my way with things, much to the show's detriment. But when they want to do something, I like to do it. And so I was like, yeah, okay, let's do this one. And I really like most instances where I don't know anything about a film. I purposefully will not seek out any information about it before I sit down and watch it. The only thing that I knew about it was that it was found footage. And when I even just saw some of the content warnings up top when I was watching this, I was, what could this possibly all be about? And when we open up the film, which I won't get into too much detail until we explain overall, but it really throws you for a loop because you settle into thinking that you're watching one thing and then it twists and it turns into something completely different.
It does. It does. And artfully as well. I was very interested to see what you thought of this film because it does hit a lot of things that we're interested in and that we've talked about before. And it's weird that we'd never heard of it. And we were just talking about this before hitting record today, how it had not been on our radars whatsoever. And it was kind of weird that it hadn't before because it's, we're Blair Witch fans. Wes has a very intimate relationship with Blair Witch as being something genuinely fucking scary. And as horror fans, we don't just only watch it for the gags and the gores and the set pieces. We do like to try to be scared. That's what's interesting about it. That's what hooked us in the first place. So it's not chasing the dragon necessarily, but we do enjoy something that unsettles us. And you would think that something that's kind of similar to that would have caught our attention. That it has other elements later in the film that tickle my fancy. They're out in the woods and they encounter some wood folk here and there. That they're doing some urban exploration is something that's been on my radar. I love films like that. I always have. Found footage in general, but urban exploration even more so. Things that are like shows, like Grave Encounters, that become like a found footage thing because of the nature of their show is specifically interesting to me. Anything with an occult, backwoods, hillbilly, or a demonological sense to it, even a bit, is interesting to us. And it hadn't crossed our desks at all, which was just weird. YouTubing, like we've had a podcast for over a decade. I've had a YouTube show for almost as long. I mean, we pay attention to stuff. We now have a YouTube show ourselves. We all watch YouTube, but you'd think that there's a YouTuber involved in this would have crossed our desks. Wes has gone to see Iron Lung. I have not, but that's another like YouTuber that has been quite famous for being a YouTuber that made a horror film. he's not the first, because here's another. You think that would have come up at some point, but no, it's just really weird.
There is something that makes me wonder if Chris Stuckman here is thinking, as Markiplier had gotten all of this press about a YouTuber making a movie. What's next? I wonder if he was sitting there just like with his arms crossed, like, fuck you guys. Like, I'm a YouTuber. Yeah. I made a goddamn, there's Blu-rays, for God's sakes. I made a goddamn movie.
He made a goddamn movie, and it's not just that he, as a YouTuber that made a movie, he utilized YouTube in sort of the genesis of this.
Yeah, really going back to the well of a lot of people in the early days of making found footage films, and created guerrilla marketing. Is this real? Is this not real? I'll never tell until it was revealed that, oh, okay, what we're going to do is a movie. It kind of reminds me a little bit about, if you remember in the early 2000s, the saga of Lonely Girl 15. It was this
I do.
This teenage girl who would be vlogging essentially from her bedroom, and then through little drips and drabs, you find out that her parents are part of a cult, and the cult is after her. And of course, the whole thing turns out to be a YouTube television show. But, you know, at the time, it wasn't presented like that. And audiences were not used to this notion of YouTube was a place in which it was authentic. People didn't put out scripted television or scripted miniseries or webisodes or whatever term they started using back in those days. So there was real controversy around Lonely Girl 15. And I remember watching those videos all those years ago thinking, I don't know, guys, like, obviously as it progressed, it became painfully obvious that it was a scripted show. But, you know, this Paranomal Paranoids, again, I will contend one of the worst names for a YouTube show I could possibly think of. It's just very interesting to me that he was utilizing these techniques, which in a weird way seem dated, but also kind of appropriate for just new mediums coming out and breaking into more traditional mainstream filmmaking.
Mm-hmm. And I like that nowadays we do expect most things are scripted. Not only do we expect most things are scripted, we expect that they're a fucking AI. So it's really fun to look back at this sort of time capsule that was Lonely Girl 15, right? And like these shows that we're trying to do sort of like what Blair Witch did, in that they have a movie coming out, but they're going to pre-release all of this guerrilla marketing material and go and have a mockumentary made for Fox and things like that. It's up there with Alien Autopsy, where people are kind of in on it, but trying to like get people like my mom to be like, do you think that's real? You know, and it's to whatever amount of success that those things had, with people like my mom notwithstanding. She wanted to believe. She was the Fox Mulder of the house. She wanted to believe that Alien Autopsy and the Blair Witch were real. She knew they weren't, and at first she didn't, and it got her. Just like I almost believed the other day for April Fools that they were going to bring Olive Garden to our cafeteria at work, but it was a joke. It got me. It got me.
Good news, there's an Olive Garden opening up near my house, so you can have...
I know, and I think that's what made me believe it. I was like, oh, they're not only expanding into Westboro, they're going to be at my work. Cool, not whatever. But yeah, there is like, you know, that sort of thing going on at the time that these were released. And maybe it missed the wave by a little bit. And maybe that was part of the problem, where everybody who's anybody, I think there's probably 10 film scripts that died on the vine because their guerrilla marketing campaign didn't get eyeballs. Because by that point, we've cottoned on to it and we're like, oh, this is just going to be another one of those guerrilla marketing campaigns. And oh, there's a girl in the woods and a clown or whatever. What movie is this going to be advertising in 10 years?
It's just interesting because the Blair Witch people have just turned this into a science, because they not only kept doing it with their original film, but then they did it again in 2016 where they pulled the wool over everyone's eyes and they said, here's what did they call it? The forest or
The woods.
the woods.
The
That's
woods.
right. And then
Mhm.
everyone leaves the theater and they're like, ho, 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 welcome back to Bricketsville. They did it with the Blair Witch video game. They're like, hey, what do you think about this creepy video game? Kind of scary, eh? Oh, what's this? Where are we headed? Bricketsville? You know what I mean? Like this is just something that's part and parcel with one of the greatest found footage franchises of all time. So it makes sense that Shelby Oaks would be following a little bit in their footsteps. And rest assured, Lydia's mom, I would be right there with her. We'd be watching the McPherson tape, Incident at Lake County, Alien Autopsy, all that stuff. And I would be looking you dead in your fucking face saying, Lydia, these people are missing. You're out of your mind. This is real.
How come no one's doing anything?
We're all just sitting here, just talking about it. Let's go help these people. It was this little girl's birthday.
It's that sort of like that fear and worry, right? Like it gets at you when it's done right. This, I can't say whether it was done right or not because I wasn't in on the ground floor.
I don't know either. This is all hearsay and secondhand accounts and debate online. Is this real? Is this not real? All I can base it on is the fact that, yeah, people were fooled by Lonely Girl 15. People were fooled by the Blair Witch Project. People are fooled by shit now. So it's not as though we have, I've seen some hilarious comments, people indictments of how people fell for things like the Blair Witch Project and Lonely Girl 15, and people in the comment section having the fucking audacity to say, well, to be fair, people didn't really have the media literacy that they do today. Hello, you're all a bunch of fucking mouth-breathing, knuckle-dragging morons. You fall for everything all the time. Like, who the hell is this? Like, we have media literacy now. No, you don't, dipshits.
No, it's an illness of pseudo intellectualism that is run rife these days, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, because you could just sit there and be like, I was never fooled. Meanwhile, they were probably like, someone saved this little girl. And then when it was obviously fake, they're like, I never believed it. The whole time I knew it was fake. I was just pretending. But fuck all that, Lydia. Fuck these idiots and fuck Lonely Girl 15. What is this movie even about anyways? We got to tell them.
This movie is about paranormal paranoids. This is that kind of down home found footage story where you are out there chasing, haints and spooks, right? You're out there with your cameras and your friends doing the urban exploration, boots on the ground work to prove or disprove as best as you can what is a haunted paranormal happening or not. But where the paranoia sinks in is when you really are out there on a limb. You're out there in the middle of coyote infested cottages, right? Like you're out there in the abandoned asylum. Anything could go wrong. And, when something terrible, like they get attacked, a group of young teens, basically defenseless young teens that are not equipped for what they're being handed, go missing, get into deep trouble, get killed. Like that should paranoid some of those people that are out there trying to emulate this sort of behavior when they're not as prepared. Even though you'd like to say four of them together, they should have been safe. Because I'm starting to feel like this was real. I'm starting to get into that, paranoia and the paranoia of a missing person. And to get quite real, there is a missing persons case in North Bay that a lot of people I know knew this guy. I'd met him a couple times. He was very young, so I didn't know him, but it's on the tip of everyone's tongue around March when he went missing 15 years ago, Luc Jolie de Rocher. And you can't help but you take all of these crazy theories, because if someone would have been like, oh, that girl ain't missing, she's living in this lady's basement, right? Like you kind of don't want to believe that, but you have to put that in the tip file. You have to report that to the police because any lead is important when someone knows something, right? And that's what they sort of play with this, as far as the interviews that are being done with the character Mia. It touches things like the three billboards in Baltimore. A girl's twin sister goes missing for 20 some years. She is on that case forever until she gets an answer. And she may never. And we all know that. She knows that. You got to follow up the case. If you were presented with the what is presented in this film, Shelby Oaks, she would have to go to the police and work through this. There's the Christina Maria Plante. She was missing for what, 37 years, 27 years, something like that. Found recently. She had run away. But all that time, people would have come up with scenarios a lot like Shelby Oaks, or worse, or, less interesting, like she tripped and fell somewhere and we haven't found her, which is a theory in Luc Jolie de Rocher's case. With the Elizabeth Smart case, people probably thought she would never be found, and it was a horrifying reality when she was. And you can watch a special featuring her telling her story in her own words on Netflix if you have the balls, because it is horrifying what she went through. So again, these are all reasons why I think that this movie should have crossed our desks, especially being true crime listeners and fans, right? But yeah, this is about the paranoia that sinks in, whether you are sneaking through an abandoned insane asylum or have someone near and dear to you that you haven't heard from today.
Your telling of the young lad going missing in North Bay reminded me in up in my cottage in Ladysmith, Michael Scandifio, he went missing Oktoberfest. There's a gas station in Ladysmith that I go to literally every time I'm up there, and you see his car just drive past, and that's it. And you just wonder, this guy, what the fuck? And so often when people go missing like this, my first thought ever since I was a kid was, oh, they're dead. What's the other explanation? Right? It's they had an accident or somebody took them, particularly when they're kids, when they're young. And I mean, this the person in Ladysmith was almost 60, so he wasn't young. But like, so there's a lot of things that can happen when you're driving your truck at night over in that kind of a rural area, right? I mean, I'm assuming it's at the bottom of one of the lakes. To be real with you, who knows? And maybe we'll never know. But or maybe he'll show up in a few years. Just wanted to be somewhere else, like or perhaps a more horrific reality. But we are presented in this film, Shelby Oaks. First, it's a disorienting beginning because we are starting this film what feels like the end. It feels like we're walking down the stairs in that dilapidated old farmhouse in the Blair Witch Project, and we're gonna see that Ryan, his face to the wall, and that camera drops. We see Riley scared. We're hearing the sounds of coyotes in the darkness, and we're seeing her afraid to open that door to this room that she is holed up in. Then we're going to break into a documentary. And it's interesting that when you were talking about feeling as though this story was real, there was several moments in the first 25 to 30 minutes of this film where I kept forgetting that I was not watching some kind of Netflix documentary. It is so effective and so, we've seen things like this before, right? The beginning of Grave Encounters is very similar. The Hell House LLC, many of those films are presented in this faux documentary style. But I argue this one is the most realistic in terms of feeling like a documentary. The only thing that I would say pulls me out of it, and it did continuously, some of the dialogue is just not very naturalistic. And so it doesn't really sound, it sounds like a writer is writing a script and is elevating the language, and people are sometimes, particularly in the case of Mia, kind of speaking in purple prose. And every time that she would have a long bit of dialogue, or when I would see another person who's being interviewed kind of flummox a little bit and look like they're searching for their words, my brain says, well, okay, this is a movie, because a documentarian would cut all that out and just have concise declarative statements and not so much hemming and hawing. Again, it's an actor's attempt to make unnatural dialogue flow a little bit better and seem as though you're coming up off the top of your head.
They do a very good job of that. And you could, like, if you want to explain it away, if it was, if you stop the movie right before the jig is up, you could be like, well, it's been 12 years. Maybe she's just being interviewed a lot, right? And she's gotten used to saying the same thing. It comes off like a script now at this point. Or, go the other route and just have it done so impeccably well, like Poughkeepsie Tapes. That is the only other faux documentary that really did it so well, to the point that my old roommate Matt came into the living room, as he often did when I was watching something that was a little too bloody or spicy for him, but he'd still like hang out and he'd come in and see, and he like stopped and he stayed and he waited and he watched like 20 minutes of it, standing there with his coffee in his hand, until he went, is this real? This isn't real, right? Because he was hooked. It's a fantabulous story, much like this, but presented at first like this documentary after the fact. The found footage angle of it is done well enough that we're not always in shaky cam. There's no real shaky cam to be had. Not a lot anyway. We're not like continuously looking for things to start with, because they don't start out with like the red circle on the screen being like, and here you can see the horned creature in the background. Like, they're not doing any of that stuff at first. So that's good. It also helps rewatching it. I got the chance to, of course, rewatch it again before we sat down today, and it was fun looking through those found footage moments at the first 25 minutes of the movie and seeing all those little things that I now know are there.
It's funny because they don't lay it on as thick as they do in Hell House LLC, where like in Hell House, they literally like circle, did you see? I was like, did I see the 6 grown men just appear out of nowhere? You don't need to circle all of them with a red pen. But it's done in a way that you're squinting and you're looking and you're saying to yourself, I don't really know what I'm looking at actually in this sequence. If you say this is a guy, all right, it could be a guy, but we are presented with this very compelling story. And the story is this: the young woman that we saw at the beginning of this film is a host of a paranormal activity style show. They're ghost hunters. It's like the Ghost Files that the YouTube channel Watcher produces. It's a very popular, very big ghost hunting show. There's tons of these channels on YouTube right this moment that you can go and watch. And this seems like a very dated, very old-fashioned version of this. And you find out that all of this footage in this show, the Paranomal Paranoids, this all was a YouTube show that was from 12 years ago, because in the final episode that was to be released, these people were gathering their belongings and they were heading over to Shelby Oaks, this place in Dark County, dark with an E. And this is an abandoned town. There's no real explanation about why the town was abandoned. Some people say crops spoiled, the soil became fallow. I suppose because like the soil became fallow, were they all farmers? Like, I don't understand what you're saying. But at some point, this town basically died off and became abandoned. And so they were going to explore it. Now, the interesting thing is this episode never happens because the entire crew goes missing. And there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of intrigue about what could have happened. And then many people at the beginning believed this to be a publicity stunt, because one of the things that should be known is that this was not a successful YouTube channel up until they went missing. Then it went viral.
Which is still a viable tactic, right? Pretend you're missing. That would make everyone famous. There's so many unsuccessful YouTube channels. Most of them are, basically. So, yeah, did you know Dark County, much like Burkittsville, does exist? It's very close to Helltown, Ohio, but not quite, which was one of the locations that they were going to visit. So I could see where they're playing with that suspension of disbelief. Even at this point where you could go and be like, I'd never heard of Paranormal Paranoids before. This has got to be fake. This is not real. But then you would go to YouTube and find it, which is the whole other layer of reality that they're giving this. As far as their marketing campaign beforehand, I would have watched this show. There are a lot of shows on Tubi that are just like this, and there's a lot of shows on Amazon that are just like this too. Let alone YouTube. There's probably hundreds of thousands of shows that got to this point, right? They had been teasing their next stop, though. So it opens the gates not only for her family to go looking for her, but if fans wanted to go and track them down or follow in their footsteps, they very well could have. So I like that they leave it really kind of wide open at that point.
They do. And the narrative shifts when police become involved and it becomes obvious that these people are indeed missing. And then bodies are discovered. And it's the bodies of 3 of the 4 hosts of Paranormal Paranoids, hard to say, as Riley will attest to. And then the main question is now on everyone's mind: what happened to Riley Brennan? And the person who is living with this the most is her own sister, who wants to cut through all the bullshit, cut through the memes, cut through the speculation, and all of the speculative arguments around what possibly could have happened to Riley. And she wants to introduce you to the Riley that she knew, a very mature, very precocious little girl who would have night terrors and would have other situations that would seem to make her in a drift through a good portion of her life. But she found a sense of purpose with this paranormal show on YouTube. She was interested in the occult, and her friends went out there and tried to make it work until their final episode that actually made it to stream, which was at this prison. And something occurs at this prison that we're not privy to, but it scares Riley, and really she's never the same.
I like that Riley's a little bit of a ghost magnet at this point, and the things that scare her we don't really see, because even when we're, if I'm watching a found footage type film, so I'm looking for things in the background, we see the cold breath, we see the fear on her face, and that's really what sells it. And I've seen other paranormal shows where there is a point where, like, Heather Taddy has her hair lifted at one point in one episode, and it freaks her out because it would, and it does. And, who knows what actually happened there. It was very freaky, but it's her being freaked out by it that sells it. Nothing caught on tape that does. And I like that they do play that up quite a bit. And they're in a very, very creepy asylum. I like this town, wherever the hell it is, because it's got an abandoned amusement park, which they say they're going to go to next. And where her and her sister spent a lot of time as kids, incidentally. They've got an abandoned asylum. They've got creepy woods. They got a hanging tree. They got all kinds of shit in this town. I would love to just, be scouting around my own backyard to make a paranormal show, because they don't seem to leave the state, let alone the areas she grew up in. But that adds another layer to it. Like it said, she's like very artistic with a little bit of interest in the occult, night terrors altogether. She seems a shoo-in, like a ghost magnet for this particular sort of show. I was very interested in seeing the abandoned amusement park, and I wish we would have been able to spend a little bit more time there, because it reminds me quite a lot of the abandoned amusement park in my friend Regina's book Carney, which is based on a real abandoned amusement park on the Delaware River. I think it's called Burlington Island, if I remember. And I love the idea of just picking through the woods and all of a sudden you see like an abandoned merry-go-round. Super creepy to me.
Yeah, there's something about these dilapidated structures that really evoke the imagination. That is one of my main criticisms of this film. And we'll get to my other minor criticism, but I'm going to add it because I just don't like it. But I really wish we spent more time really exploring this. They had such a strong setup for me personally. But I really, even though this is a documentary put together large in part with Mia and about her sister Riley and wanting to find that, we don't learn anything about Laura, David, or Peter, the other hosts of the show. All we know is that they died and that they were also there and that they were part. You would see clips and bits of them here and there from the YouTube show, but okay, fine. I'm going to sit back. I'm going to allow this movie to tell me its story. I'm sure they're getting to it. They don't. And then all of a sudden, when we are packing up for this documentary and it's not really sure what Mia hopes to gain from this, because Mia really lets people in on her life about what has happened. And what I liked about this aspect of her explaining things is that it really shows that in true crime, families are destroyed by these events and life is put on hold. And it's really true what they say, that these incidences where people go missing, they're killed, whatever, sometimes then they never know. It just puts everything on pause. The ripple effects are more than just the person who goes missing. It's mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, everybody that knew this person, and they become something that you either have to move past and as a memory frozen in time, or you hold the torch like Mia does. She even puts her having a kid on hold because they have a crib, Lydia, full of Amazon boxes to let you know that they built the nursery, got the crib, no baby. There's no time for babies when you're making documentaries about your missing sister for 12 years. And so we're just going to use it for storage.
Which it seems to really get the goat of her husband. Yeah, I think he must have been the one that built that nursery because, all that hard work down the drain. Poor guy. Aside from their marital strain, right? But what better place could you think of for Amazon boxes? I mean, seriously, it's
I don't,
basically built for the purpose.
I just imagine him. He's like, listen, I really want a baby. You know what? What if I build the nursery first to let her know that I'm interested in having a baby? And so the hard part is already done, the nursery. And then, oh my God, it's like you were saying before we started the show. It's like you get an exercise bike and then you end up just drying laundry on it. Well, they have a crib that's
Mhm.
just full of Amazon boxes. It's really sad. But no sooner do they wrap up filming this documentary, but all of a sudden a strange man shows up, a strange hulking man comes out of nowhere. She finally let me go, Liz. And that cryptic sentence is the last thing he's ever going to say because he blows his fucking brains out. And not only does he blow his brains out, but we're going to go dark. And then we're going to come back and we're in HD now, Liz. This is
We're in HD. He
yeah.
blasted us right out of cinema verite.
Yes, this is where they leave the found footage portion of this film. Now, I don't like this, but I've decided to get over it so I can do an episode where I'm not being a snotty piece of shit. But I just want for the record to say this was a mistake, in my opinion, because you had me. You had me. Hook, line, and sinker. I was in. I was in. And then the thing that I liked about it, you stopped doing. And there's a lot of reasons why you would do this, right? There's a lot of proving that I suppose a burgeoning young filmmaker would want to do. He wants his movie to look like a fucking film. He wants things to be on sticks. It was kickstarted. The budget was over $1 million. You want it to look like you spent the money on the movie. It's harder to do that with found footage because the nice thing about found footage, it's obvious to say it, but I'll say it anyway. They don't cost a lot of money to make. I don't even think Paranormal Activity cost 30 grand. I think it was less than 20. So this is really a stylistic choice that I get it. I get it. I just don't like it. But that's all I'm saying about not liking it. We're moving on.
Yes, we are moving on. Although I will say, I have the same arguments. You could, copy paste what you just said. However, I am glad we got to dodge the bullet of explaining why the videographer is following her fucking around everywhere for like a week and the inevitable fight that happens with all these found footage films where halfway through the film the camera people are like, I don't want to do this anymore, and they're like, well, we don't want you to follow us anymore. Well, I'm gonna follow you. Well, fine then, follow me. I don't want to sit through that again. I'm tired of it. I'm tired to death of this.
Will you stop filming everything? This is real life. Like,
get that camera out of my face. Yeah. Or, hey, turn the camera on. I need light over here. Put the light on the camera. Yeah.
It's so good.
I don't want, I'm tired of that. So tired of that. So we did get to dodge that bullet, although our man on the doorstep did not. He also left conveniently some tape. So if you want found footage, Wes, don't you worry. Don't you fret to steal your line. We got some. We got some. It's on the fucking doorstep. And we're going to watch it splattered in blood still. I will say this movie is very bloody here and there. It's got some pretty bloody scenes. Unlike most found footage, we get to see her co-hosts bludgeoned to death. Some things are blurred out, but there's a lot of blood. And we just got to see probably the most gory and real found footage movie scene in quite some time.
Oh yeah, there's a scene in this movie that's just straight. I was like, wow, that's fucking gross. But when the cops come, they carry the body away, but she does see that he's got himself a mini DV tape clutched in his hulkish hands. This is a big guy, and she is going to, still covered in blood. Her husband, Robert, I am like not on his side. I don't know how you possibly could have written this guy to look and act like more of a douche, but he just seems so over it. Like he seems so over talking about Riley, but even to the point is like, okay, I could understand the frustration. You got a crib, it's full of boxes. We've all been there. But at the same time, you're acting like a dude didn't just blow his brains out in front of your fucking wife. And you're just kind of sitting there away from her. Well, she needs her space, and he's got his arms crossed, and she's sitting there covered in this man's blood, just comatose. And this guy is just like, well, I'm going to bed. You do whatever you do whatever you're doing. I'm tired. Let's just put this all about. What are you talking about, bro? Put on a fucking movie, sit with your goddamn wife. What the hell? This is not like she's been carrying the torch of Riley for 12 years and there's not a shred of evidence that anything is ever going to come up. So let's try to move on with our lives. This is not that, Robert, you fucking little freak, you beardo freak. But like,
he gets worse. Quite honestly, in my estimation, he gets worse.
And then comes crawling. Anyway, we'll get back to that. I'm so happy that she pulled her hand away. I'm so happy. I was like, yes, Mia, yes. But like, but I'm sorry. Mia is going to watch this footage. And here's where they fooled me yet again. because I thought to myself, okay, here we go. We are going to watch the rest of the movie, and it's going to be this found footage, and we're going to see what happened to Laura and David and Peter, and we're going to see them get to Shelby Oaks, and we're going to see them start recording their episode and going through the motions about how they get their shots, and then weird things going to happen after grave encounters, right? Like I'm expecting grave encounters or Hell House LLC or something like that. No, we are still going to stick to this. It's a movie and it's not found footage. And this portion is really going to be 5 minutes, maybe, of footage, but it is going to be instructive because it's going to be spliced in here and there, a very truncated version of the film that they didn't make, but I just described. And then we are going to see them attacked, and it's going to be very obvious and graphic. There was a point in which I literally thought some guy was getting his face eaten, where I was just thinking to myself, like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, that's nasty. And and then we see the face of the person who has attacked Riley, because we see this vantage point from Riley that we didn't see before. Beforehand, we saw her in the bedroom going into the door. Now we're seeing his perspective. And then you think to yourself, oh, so just like she was taken or killed by a scary man.
Like, bummer. I mean, yeah, it's not paranormal, right? At this point, you're wondering where the paranormal angle is in all this. Um, yeah, I really did enjoy this though, because again, I don't have to sit through a not well made found footage documentary or show, but the performances within that remaining 5 minutes that we're watching with Mia, who is still splattered in blood, which I think is just interesting because she's so determined, so galvanized by all of this that she hasn't even wiped her face. Her husband is leaving her. She does not give a shit. I don't blame her. So I do like how it moves the plot along beyond the plot of the found footage, which that is the end of it. You know, that is the footage that the YouTube audience never got to see and never will. Right? It is now evidence, although she has not turned it in, which kind of ticks off her husband, her Barney Rubble of a husband. What's
Yeah.
interesting is during this, there is woodcut. She has some library scenes that are attached to this.
Yes, I love those library scenes. And when I saw her sitting in this humongous computer that looks like it's from 1999, I thought to myself, this is why Lydia wanted me to watch this movie, because she's looking at newspaper articles. It's not exactly microfiche, but it's close enough.
Mhm.
I'll say that it counts. This counts as a good library
Microfiche and a
scene.
woodcut. Like, what more do you need?
Hell yeah. And then, gang, later, I got real excited because she pulled out a straight up demonology book. That's cool, right? But, and that's got like drawings in it and cool stuff and shit, hellhounds and stuff. By the
Sigils, like, yeah.
sigils, yeah. This hellhound, by the way, when the DV tape ends, we see the classic. We've seen it a couple times in movies recently. We see the reflection of something otherworldly in the TV. So at least we know it's not just a wild case, a pedestrian case of scary man. It's scary man, but also contact with something, because we see glowing eyes, not unlike the glowing eyes we see in like Amityville Horror and all kinds of stuff like that. So we see this from the reflection of the TV. She shows this footage to her husband, which Lydia had pointed out, like just non-reaction. Like he wants to go back to bed so bad. And then he's just like, well, you didn't tell the cops? Because it's like, give this to the police so I can go to bed because I'm tired. I don't understand. Like, they need to find something else to do in movies for people than make it just seem like they're just so angry that they're not in bed. I don't know about you, but I've been woken up many times in my life because things need to happen, things need to get done, or there's an emergency or something like that. And I have never once told anybody to fuck off because I want to go back to bed. Not even once. Not even when I did need to go back to bed because I had work in the morning. So this, like, I cannot relate this to this at all.
I have twice in my life yelled at people that I need to sleep, but that was because they were having a full-on drunk party unexpectedly at 3 in the morning kind of thing. And, I worked. I had to get up in 2 hours, like, "Holy shit, what are you doing?" But, yeah, it's a Tuesday. But, yeah, not because of something that directly affects me, like any concern of a family member that is real and pressing. I don't wanna just go to sleep. That's crazy. But, yeah, I guess I didn't have much to go with this guy because he doesn't really seem to have a life. Maybe they should have made him a fucking successful architect.
Yeah, like all you have to do is just put that fuck ass like desk, the architect like drawing desk like in the corner, and like, maybe put like a old cup of coffee next to it, and you're like, "Oh, I see. He's an architect, probably has a big project on the way or something." But guess what? He's going to fuck off anyways. So and Mia really is on her own, and this is the most egregious thing ever, but it's also really shows how determined Mia is, because for the first time in over a decade, she has a lead. She has a face. She needs to figure out who this person was. And I would imagine this is a woman very sick and tired of dealing with police, very sick and tired of being kept out of things as investigations go on and you never know what's going to happen. She's going to take matters into her own hand and keep her sister's name, she says this, from getting dragged through the mud again. Now, I don't know how much her name would have been dragged through the mud, because initially they thought that it was a hoax, but then when it became obvious that it wasn't a hoax, then everyone got concerned and wanted to know where she was. If anything, would you just want to avoid speculative media circus? Or is there an implication that we have 4 people missing and 3 bodies? Did Riley kill her castmates? Is that what people are implying?
It could be. It could very well be. Or it was a a popularity tactic gone wrong. Maybe they hired the wrong guy to play the madman or something. Like, who knows what people would have been thinking. People have made all sorts of weird ideas. There's very, very weird ideas in the Luke Jolie DeRoche case that make him out to be, like, responsible or implicate him in a negative way in his own disappearance, and maybe that's exactly what had happened here. Like, we could go back, and that's the beauty of this film, I think, is that we could go back to the somewhat quasi-falsified internet presence of Paranormal Paranoids and take a look at what people were saying, because there were people who were duped by this, who have left comments and have left their little think pieces of their armchair detective things, which I'm not shitting on armchair detectives. Armchair detectives caught Luca Magnotta. So, like, who knows who else they've been responsible for helping in cases with too, right? Like, there is a real community and there's a real reason for that sort of investigative work, because it just takes someone else's eyes, and it doesn't matter who those eyes belong to. A husband and wife team solving some Zodiac cipher to the capture of Luca Magnotta. There is something in that. It's just a shame that, any of their energies would have been wasted on something that is ultimately a fictional story. But I digress. I very sure someone has, and I like that we don't really meet the documentarian until the very end, really. Uh, they don't really have, "This is my class project" sort of story built up around it. They're simply there to document this, and you meet them as much as you would meet any documentary maker in a real documentary. So I do like that. We don't need a full explanation for all of this. If you've seen the footage, the documentary about the woman who has the 3 billboards in Baltimore, she has a very similar attitude of, "My sister's been missing a long time. I don't fucking trust any of you, and I know none of you care about this like I do," kind of attitude, and it comes across very, very well. what comes across very well is that her husband is a serious piece of shit, and if that truck belongs to him, I'm glad she's driving it into the ground, cross fucking the state, chasing this lead, because his final thing that he has to say to her is, "You need help." Like, yeah, she does. She needs gas money and a hotel room. Help her out with that, you fucking goon. Like, I'm all
Yeah.
for
Help from
grabbing
you,
this
sir.
lead. Yeah, like, she should get help. She shouldn't be going through all of this alone, because that's what enters the next level of fear here, I think, is that she does retrace her sister's footsteps as best she can, and I'm unsettled by being alone in an insane asylum alone at night, I will say.
When Mia gets a bit of intel, the first place that she wants to go is to see in which something she needs to see this prison that Riley changed at. Beforehand, she is going to get a little bit of intel about who this person might have been, this Wilson Miles. And no better person to talk to than Keith David. And he's a welcome addition. I remember I saw him in his opening in the opening credits, and I immediately texted my partner, and because they are, if there's a bigger Keith David fan on planet Earth, I don't know who they might be, but they were very excited that he was in the movie, and I was excited too. He's great in this scene as the warden, who gives us a little bit of background on Wilson Miles about being this violent guy who was born in 1981 and he lived in Shelby Oaks. The only thing that's difficult for me to parse is what Mia gains from this conversation is a wild guess in which she now believes that Wilson Miles effectively was the thing that cursed the town, because she's like, look, he was in prison and then he went back to Shelby Oaks and then the town died. But also, and this is like another part of their background with Riley, is Riley used to have night terrors, but then when they stopped, Wilson Miles was in prison, and when they started again, he was out of prison. What? That is genuinely just now, listen, just because she's right doesn't make this not an insane fucking logic leap. But she does so happen to be right. But we know that Riley, when she was a little girl, Lids, was seeing things. And this figure outside of the window has been haunting them effectively their whole lives.
I like this Jody the Pig thing that we're introduced to in a few ways, and I really enjoy the sort of harbinger of this I I incarnation of Jody the Pig is that there will be something at the window that you can't quite see, and then the window will crack a little bit, which I find so effective. And it's not only just the sound of the breaking glass, the immediacy on screen, the physicality of the breaking glass, because nothing is there to really break it. He's not touching the window. When you can see this figure, because there's points in this film later where you can see this like horned, shadowy creature with the glowing eyes. It's not touching the window. It's just its presence. It like takes a micro step closer to the window, and that's all it takes to break it. That's a really cool presence of evil on screen. I really, really like that. There's one point where you might not have noticed the breath on the window, but then the window cracks and kind of points to it for you. I fucking love that. Like, that's very, very good filmmaking. And I was taking a look online to see if I could find the script. Unfortunately, when you type in Shelby Oaks, you just get reams and reams and reams and reams of advertising and marketing and, film shit. You get film shit, film talk. You don't get the script. So I don't know if that's in the original script. And if it is, then just kudos to this YouTuber for writing a really effective horror story. I really do like that creature. I also like the playing with the carvings that are on trees of sort of this like almost Blair Witch stick figure thing. Then upon watching it again, there's a lot more of that. There's a lot more figures in the background, things in the forest. They're not all pointed out in, frame by frame later on or in other people's videos about this film. But you can see quite a lot of them, or maybe some of them that other people haven't noticed, which is super fun about these sorts of movies. But the stick figures that we'll see and the carvings in the trees that aren't her and her sister's initials are this W and M, sort of like this Wilson Miles. You could think it's Wilson Miles, as a little sigil that he's carved and things, and you see it here and there throughout the film. You see Mia's name, in the jail cell, and you see his little initials and stuff, like, it's done quite effectively, I think. So maybe he did stare at the town to death while he was in the prison and curse it that way. It is intrinsically creepy too, if she is right, which she is right, but, like, was he as a physical being, as his, you know, big Barney Rubbleness standing outside of a little girl's window? That's creepy.
It also would be difficult though, because their bedroom was on the second floor. So it would be, I mean, he could be out in a tree, he could be hanging onto a ledge. It's not impossible. It's just a little unlikely. But
Go-go gadget legs,
something
light
of
as a
that
feather, stiff
sort.
as a board.
Now, there's another bit of information that we neglected, and that is the fact that Mia and Riley visited this amusement park in Shelby Oaks quite often. It really gives a sense that what you were saying about this paranormal show, really just Riley and her friends kind of stomping around their neighborhood for local legends. Like, it's like they would never go farther than a stone's throw away from the area in which they all grew up in. And so Riley would be very, very familiar. And some of the video footage that we have of her, she acts as though, oh, this place is so familiar. It's like I had a dream about this place. Like, girl, you fucking went here as a child. What are you talking about? Do you not remember that? Is that what the implication is? Because Mia remembers it vividly. She said that they went there regularly, all the time, is what she specifically says. So, yeah, of course it's familiar to Riley, but it's supposed to be speaking in the vaguest of terms, and perhaps they're just trying to spoon feed us this information a little bit after a while, but it kind of falls apart once Mia keeps adding more backstory to their childhood. It makes it seem as though Riley should know more than she's letting on, unless, of course, she's already under the whammy, in which case, who the hell knows? But one of the little details in the prison that I really liked was you could see where Wilson's feet were, to imply that he would stand there for days, maybe days on end, maybe only moving when he absolutely had to by some otherworldly possession. We don't know, but it's like you can see his feet print right at that window.
They sort of have the same, um, vague mention in Halloween film where Michael Myers just watched the town. That's what he did. As an adult, as an escapee, when he went back to his former home, what did he do there? He stood at the window and he watched. And that's creepy. That's totally creepy. What I can't figure out is what is all that soot around his footprints where he stood? Like he said, did he like, is that like his dander and bodily fluids, or is it mold that took root while he was standing there?
Given what we know by the end of the film, I would honestly I would honestly chop it up to a physical remnant of the malevolence that was surrounding him,
Mhm, mhm.
like a radiation. It poisoned the ground in the immediate area. It is such a concentration of malicious intent and darkness and rot and putrefaction that I believe that's what the implication was. We see this rot in the form of what looks to be burns or black mold in the house that we're going to visit quite shortly. One of the things about this movie is fucking breezy as hell. Like, Mia is going to accomplish her goals quite quickly, and it's almost like one thing fucking leads immediately to another. Now, it makes sense narratively speaking, and also it's a short runtime, but also this is all, as we come to learn, spoilers, this is predestined. So we know that this all makes sense, and Mia's going to have no shortage of help in the form of little doggies. And we learn of these hellhounds through a big old demonology book. And this is like a demonology book that you would hope to find in an attic somewhere, Lids. This is a demonology book that you fucking read about.
One that actually explains things to her. And sure, they're maligned later on in the film, but like this is a girl who doesn't know anything about incubus or succubi. She doesn't know anything about hellhounds. She doesn't know anything about anything. She doesn't know anything about the creatures of the forest. You know, she is a very rooted 21st century woman who was planning a baby, for crying out loud, 12 years ago. And between then and now, she hasn't been studying demonology. So like it's good. It's not like someone she knows had this book. That's helpful. I like that. How it is tangential. She goes out on a limb to do this, which I like. We also learn that that cold spot in the previous footage from Paranormal Paranoids,
Yeah,
that
that's
cold
right.
spot in the footage yeah, it's the cold spot in the footage from a previous episode of Paranormal Paranoids was right outside of that exact cell. So she was even affected by this residual evil, right? Or malevolence. And there was a spirit following her, so to speak, if she hadn't awakened it by visiting there.
It's like they're just going to visit. Each one of their paranormal paranoid episodes are just whatever's next to each other. Oh, we're gonna go visit the prison, and then next episode we're just gonna go to the amusement park that's immediately right next door, and then
Because
who
you can
knows what
see
was
it.
after that? Yeah,
It's proven to us because we look out
yeah.
the window as he would have and see it. We see it. I like that. It's sort of like Sadako versus Kayako, where everything's just kind of like right there.
Yeah, everything's right there. Or in Freddy versus Jason, Elm Street's but a stone's throw from Camp Crystal Lake. What is a stone's throw is Mia's destination, even though she doesn't know it yet. She finds herself lost, hearing the yips and yowls of these hounds. Now she knows, as she desperately tried to explain to Robert, who, by the way, just left and it's gone. And so she is now visiting this prison based off of a tip that she got from the warden. She has gone to this horrific place. She has seen these sigils. She has seen these sooty footprints. And now she finds herself wandering the woods in the dead of night, stalked by a creature that she has not seen fully and has only read about in this demonology book. Is this something legitimate, Lids, or is this something of her own imagination and fears playing tricks on her? This is a stressful situation, and whatever her job is, she's not a fucking detective. She's not a paranormal agent. She's not anything. She's just a woman looking for her sister. And what she finds is a hellhound. It is just a German Shepherd.
Yeah, it is. And you know, it's a cute dog. I give it that. You know, it's a very cute dog. There's 3 dogs. I think they were from Serbia. They're trained dogs, which their training comes into play later. But we've seen this dog, you know, looking up at her window earlier when she thought she saw a creature outside of her window or a person and went out there with a baseball bat to confront them. And she saw the hellhound then. The hellhound's probably been skulking about here and there in little background things. The hellhounds attacked her in the prison, chased her through the forest. I mean, that's scary enough, even if it was one dog. And I mean, aside from their training and aside from how cute they are and how scary it would be, you know, she doesn't have a baseball bat anymore. She's not a crip, like you said. She's not a cop. She's not a paranormal investigator. She doesn't have a gun. So she's hardly American. And she's out there in the forest being chased by a dog. That's scary to me. You know, any port in a storm. I will give some points to this film where she does go into the backwoods where she's not necessarily invited and ends up in a home. But it's not that she just, traipses in there and demands to use a telephone. I will give her that.
Yeah, this sequence. So we find ourselves at Norma's house. What do you got to say about Norma's house? Personally speaking, this fucking scene rocks. This is effective as hell. Norma is scary.
Yeah, Norma's scary. Norma's house is scary. Norma offers her food, and it's just like, oh my fucking God. I found this as effective as Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, or is it the fourth one where there's people living in a trailer just adjacent?
Yeah, that's yeah.
And yeah, and they're scary because they're kind of in on this, right? And you just know Norma is sight unseen. You would know Norma is just from her, like where her house is, and it's like finding the evil witch's house, but it's not made of candy, and you feel like you're in a creepy backwoods dangerous fairy tale immediately. She looks unwell, she looks unkempt, but she also looks wizened, so she knows a lot. She's playing dumb and you can fucking tell, and it's have you seen this girl? My sister, here's a picture. No, can't say I have. And it's like, oh man, that answer is creepy because you're just saying you can't say that you have. You sick bastard. I love that. I love the looks of this because there's more and more of this like sooty looking, oily, greasy, black mold thing crawling up all the walls, and she's living in this dilapidated place. I've seen less scary looking places on Urbex videos where people are like, I have to get out of here because I am going to get the black lung.
There is something so effective about the lighting in this sequence. She is backlit to the nth degree where they are not giving you a clear-cut look on her face. The house is just erupting in orange light from the darkest corners that are never casting enough light to actually effectively brighten up the room. And yet there's little vestiges of a cute, cozy home that at one point did exist. This space is as corrupted as that prison cell. And we know as Mia is asking her questions, and Mia's no fool. She's wise to this. She takes a knife from that bread, toot sweet. It is not like she doesn't wait for this old woman to start saying something, because guess what? The second she walked across that property, what was the first fucking thing she saw? She saw the exact same sigils made of sticks now adorning the lawn.
I love it. I love it. And it's like Blair Witch plus in a way for this scene. It takes a circuitous route to get here, and it continues on an even more circuitous route after. But it's like, this is the payoff. This scene in Norma's house with Norma and the back and forth that they have and the lies and the little library scene. She gets to find a photo album. All of this pays off the initial disappointment when that camera turns around and we're out of found footage and we're into an HD typical Hollywood film that was only made for $1 million, but looks like every dollar of that $1 million. This whole Norma sequence and Norma herself really do fix all that for me. I loved this scene, and this scene is why I wanted to talk about this film in the first place, because, like I said, a circuitous route. We find this photo album, and not only is the escaped Mr. Miles her son, there's pictures of Riley in this. In not just pictures of Riley, not just like a picture of Riley. There are numerous pictures of Riley in a degraded state year by year, aging, unwell, pregnant over and over, having obviously lost pregnancies. Those little stick markers in the front yard are probably graves of her stillborn children or murdered children. Who fucking knows what these people are up to? The fact that she's being kept as a baby machine, and there are very interestingly photographed photos of the deceased Mr. Miles with her in like wedding garb or like pagan sort of midsummer wedding garb, hand fasting garb, and they are hand fasted because she is tied to him with many ropes, and that's not how hand fasting goes. But hey, very effective, very very cool symbology going on in these photographs, and they're very well taken. I really 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 enjoy this. And my favorite question that Mia has asked Norma all of this time is, so do you live alone here, Norma? She's taking it all in stride because, 12 years of chasing ghosts hardens a person.
Even though we know Norma's son is very dead, there was still a part of me that wondered if he was going to show up. Doesn't it seem like he was just going to, oh, he's right behind you? Didn't it seem like almost he was going to be there? I think that's speaks to the effectiveness of just trying to orient yourself in this house, where you get the sense that rules of physics and life and death might not actually apply here. And I could tell you about the laws of physics that don't apply here, because we are going to be brought down to the depths of hell, because after she sees this information, these pictures telling this horrific life that her sister has had, the worst case scenario. Be easier if she was just murdered. But unfortunately, she was given hell on earth in the form of this insanity of these wedding photos and birth after birth after birth, and just looking at the hollowness of her eyes, it's horrific. And the scariest thing is that you hear about these stories all the time. And here we have this scenario in which Norma is very willing, very free to open the door to Riley's prison, which is underneath this carpet in the living area, and we go down to the depths of hell. And this is beyond, how big is the cellar in The Evil Dead? It seems impossibly large. It's like 3 times the size of the cabin. This is Mia now going down, and Norma welcoming her. It's a gift, and no tricks. And she goes to this long, winding hallway of lights, and it looks like it would have taken years to dig all of this out. And there is a prison cell down there in which Riley miraculously is alive. And she is free to take her sister out of there. Her sister, I bet you, had imagined this moment, probably can't even believe it. But thinks she might be hallucinating. How many times has she probably hallucinated this exact scenario about being rescued? And yet she finds herself being rescued, but then impossibly, it seems as though she has opened the door, or someone has, to this basement, and she scurries upstairs, breakneck speeds. And we find at the top of this is where shit goes off the walls. Because I don't know if, gang, Norma's got powers.
Yeah. Norma's amazing to me in so many ways. It's such a shame we don't get a Norma story. I mean, this is my pitch for the film Satyr. This is how Satyr could have gone off the rails and incredibly wild if the warlock princess, for lack of a better term, hadn't been a feeble mind and succumbing to dementia. Yeah, the film Satyr is a lot more quiet film. I would love to do it for the show, but I think it's a little too quiet. So I do implore people watching on their own because, like, yeah, you want folk horror supreme. This is folk horror rottage core. Norma is drawing down the powers of Tyrion, the incubus of the north. What are you gonna say about that? Like, okay, before we get into Tyrion, the incubus of the north, she can stop time. She can arrest people. She can levitate people. She has like Sith mind powers. It's amazing the power that she commands, and it's not a wonder that she is in this state of homeliness and disrepair and uncleanliness, because like any wizened warlock, she is working her craft all day.
It really is a sight to behold, and we can tell from Norma's position and what she is doing, because when she talks about Tyrion, the incubus of the north, and we find a baby, we know that Riley and Norma's son has had a successful child, and it probably took all this time in order for a successful child to be born. And that set the last portion of this ritual in motion. What's very demonic is the specificity of this ritual, whatever it is, because it seems to be not only do you need to have a person to give birth to this baby, that person needs to be a vessel of someone who is also possessed by Tyrion of the North, which we presume that Norma's son is and Norma herself was, but also that this incubus specifically chose Riley. But it's also imperative that Riley has a sister, because that goes into the last part of the ritual. But we know that Mia is part of this ritual because they has like a fucking glossy 8x10 of her on the wall that they smear blood on, and in the throes of Norma's ritual. My thoughts on this incubus. One, Tyrion, the incubus of the north, is not a named demon. I did look it up just to be sure. It's not a named demon in the Lesser Key of Solomon. It's not a known name of a demon by any stretch, by any demonologist that I could see over the very brief amount that I was looking it up. I have reliable places and books of my own to look it up very quickly. There is no Tyrion incubus of the north. Secondarily, incubi do not operate in this way. They really are malevolent demons, but they're also very specific demons. Interesting fun fact, succubus and incubus, obviously succubus is a very much more famous female version of this demon. The incubi is the male version of this demon. They're actually the same demon. They can just gender swap. If you believe the rags, which I do. But me
too. I mean, how can you not?
The interesting thing is that it seems to me that they created this entire thing whole cloth, because also incubus of the north implies that there's incubi of other directions, and again, it's opening up this idea of a pantheon of incubi, and that's just not what those demons are and how they operate. And
I don't even know if they have names.
They don't. They really are malevolent fuck demons that exist to explain sleep paralysis. Like that's and wet dreams. Like these are the things that people concocted to explain those things, which I suppose night terrors comes into play, that an incubus would be quite an appropriate demon to have for a young girl who is experiencing these night terrors and perhaps sleep paralysis and is being monstrously tormented by her own mind. But in this case, it's an outside force of a demon. But Norma is no more. The ritual has taken it out of her. Not only that, but she has committed a blood sacrifice, and it has siphoned the life out of her. More accurately, if you're thinking about this as a demonic purpose, this family has served their purpose. They no longer need to be guardians of Riley or the baby, because there's something else in mind. Again, so specific. But the specificity actually kind of makes it seem more demonic to me.
Yeah, very true, very true. I took Rumpelstiltskin and made him a little more demonic by making a sort of contrived ritual around the true finding of his name, because he has a chance to just stomp on the ground and disappear, unless somebody who doesn't know, who hasn't asked Rumpelstiltskin name or actively guessed it, hears it and is blood relative of the person who has instigated the naming of Rumpelstiltskin aloud.
That is very good. I like
Makes him seem so much more powerful and evil, right? Doesn't it? He's fucking Rumpelstiltskin. But
listen, I always thought Rumpelstiltskin was powerful. Any motherfucker that can get so angry that he stomps himself in half is pretty damn cool, if you ask me, because I too have found myself throwing a fit and wish that I could split in two.
I like this because, like, we were talking beforehand about how many found footage films have happy endings, and this could be, on its surface, you know, she was alive. That's fucking crazy. If she was found alive and like then just cut her own throat, that's still a win in my mind, because she was found alive after 12 years living in a fucking basement dungeon as a rape mom. Like, it's disturbing and disgusting and crazy that she lived through it all, let alone the malnutrition or whatever things can go wrong, complications of childbirth, being, you know, knocked up routinely by a madman, and having, you know, I like Norma, but her housekeeping skills are very rottage core. So not a fan of, you know, the cleanliness thing and the rot. But, you know, they go home, and that's, we get to talk to the documentarian for a minute, because this is a great note to end a documentary on, that you went out in the woods alone after being told you were not believed over and over, and you got not only your sister back, but her baby. You got to save a whole new life.
This is the golden goose, I feel like, for any true crime podcaster or documentarian or anybody, where you don't, because anything else is effectively just like another fucking Bigfoot documentary, right? Where you're just like, and who knows what's really out there in the Pine Barrens, you know? Whereas, like, here's definitive proof, alive or not, we know who took her, we know what happened, we have a body, and now there's this kid. But if we have these moments of Riley getting cleaned up in a hospital, being taken care of, the nightmare is over. Although, you know, there's no way that she's fucking fine. The documentarian asking her, so have you seen any changes in your sister? Mia's like, it's been a day. I do like that all of a sudden, guess who's back? Robert. Oh, I missed you, buddy. And he gives the most pathetic, like what you would give like comfort to like a coworker, like rub the back, like, I will rub your back 3 times, like, hey, I hope you're doing okay. And then he gingerly tries to hold her hand and she pulls the hand away. Good. You don't fucking deserve to hold her hand, you swine, you bitch. I fucking can't stand this guy. And then it's like, well, I can see now that all of this really had a purpose because you found her, and I thought the whole thing was pointless and you were being stupid, but now I see you weren't, and you went and solved it. But you know what, if you think about it, you kind of probably only did it because I pushed you a little bit.
Oh my god, yeah, that's what's going on in this mind now.
Yeah.
Can we get down to brass tacks and have that baby?
They've already taken the Amazon boxes out of the crib, but that is for the Antichrist. Or the does this baby have a name?
I do not think it does. I just think of it as the offspring of Tyrion, or what, the second coming of Tyrion.
He's Tyrion, incubus of the baby, or whatever. I don't know what this siring of I'm assuming Antichrist, because again, this is very Rosemary's Baby, and that Mia is so overwhelmed with maternal instinct. She is just like in love with this baby immediately. This, Lydia, is the other part of the ritual that we were not privy to. 2 sisters, one to bear the child, the other to raise it. But the one that bared it need no longer be. Because she knows, Riley knows what this baby is. Doesn't even refer to it by anything other than it. I have to kill it. She tries to smother this baby. And this is after Mia reveals that she herself saw this creature one night when Riley was asleep, and she went to snuggle with her sister to comfort her in the night because she's having so many terrors. She herself was the one that saw this dark force. The documentarian asking her, wait a minute, how did you find all this anyway? It's like, well, something led me there. A hellhound led you there. But the hellhounds are going to be a problem again. She is going to struggle with her sister because her sister wants to smother this baby. And that crack in the window that has been haunting them their entire life was prophesizing how Riley would, in theory, meet her end as she goes tumbling out that window.
I like this camera work here because at first, like, you see a body go through that. The sisters aren't completely similar. Like, one is blonde and one is darker haired. And they're wearing different clothes and stuff like that. But just the way that the camera does move quite quickly and this figure moves quite quickly, you can't quite tell who won that struggle until you turn around and see Mia's face, looking quite upset that she's just thrown her sister out a window to protect the baby. I guess her mama bear strength took over and tossed her sister. And it's sad because, like, at this point, you really know, like, my God, how many times has Riley been in this situation? She's the real hero here. Because, like, not only has she probably lost babies, she was probably killing them as fast as she fucking could. You know, every 10 months she was killing a baby for 12 years. Like, she's the real hero here. So when she lands and looks quite crumpled and broken, because we get that out of the window scene where we get to see what the body looked like when it fell. But her eyes are open. She's going to be okay, right? No. The hellhounds have come to do what they've been doing all along, honestly, protecting the baby and the mother, the new mother in Mia, the caretaker. Protecting and warding and guarding is what they've been doing. So now this obvious threat is cut down to their size. All 3 of the dogs attack, tear her apart, and kill her. Right there, which is terrible because her sister's watching this. And as much as she can flip into gotta protect the baby, mama bear mode, she still cares for her sister, right? Like, she's being overridden by these ritualistic needs, even until or as well as when Tyrion himself pays her a final visit.
It's a good look for a demon. It's jet black. It's got the glowing eyes and horns. It looks quite foreboding. And you see the shine on her eyes, which have afflicted everybody. And you can tell that this is more than just mama bear maternal instincts. I have to take care of this baby because I guess I really always wanted one. And now that I'm presented with a baby, we're going to, like, protect it forever. There's a little bit of the whammy on her that we get the sense, and we can see that she is under Tyrion's control, incubus of the north. And she lets out a death wail of agony, credits, and we're getting out of here.
I thought there was going to be a post-credit sequence because the credits are quite lengthy. Almost 10 minutes of credits. This is like a forever credits. And I was like, oh, there's got to be something. No, just backers' names. This was backed. This was kick-started, Wes.
It was, back in the day, like the earliest horror film I remember when they crowdfunded it. That's what they're like, we crowdfunded it. Was A Little Bit Zombie. It was a horror comedy movie from many years ago, but that was the first time I ever heard the term. And this was kickstarted, very successfully kickstarted, and good for them. The filmmaker, and they got Mike Flanagan. Flanagan, by the way, was evidently the person that was interested in making that gruesome death of Riley more gruesome. He had said that she's got to get ripped apart by the dogs, because initially she fell out the window when she died. They went back to reshoots to make it more brutal, and that's where this those sequences and reshoots were. Here's my wish of this film. I really wish this was 20 minutes longer, and I really wish you would have given me more of the Paranormal Paranoids.
And their full-on theme song. Their theme song rocks.
The reason why I say this is because it is a very breezy beeline. Mia, in my opinion, encounters no difficulty finding her sister when it's time for her sister to be found. Now, again, we can excuse it all as this is fated. The hellhounds, the rituals, the guy showing up at her house, blowing his brains out. This is all part of it. And these were set in motion at precisely the moment they needed to be set into motion. And if one of the babies had survived initially, you would have found your sister in 9 months and not 12 years. But unfortunately, this is the reality that Riley had faced, and it ended the same way that it always inevitably would. But I just, again, the opening is so strong, and you had me hook, line, and sinker, Chris Stuckman. You had me. I wanted to know about these characters. I wanted to know what happened. I see people's point. I see your point. Then it's just Hell House LLC. Then it's just Grave Encounters. The thing about horror fans, though, we kind of just like to watch the same thing over and over and over again, which is why I think that the obvious calls to things like the Blair Witch, like we're looking at stick figures and all that kind of stuff, that's not like, oh my God, Blair Witch much. It's, oh, cool. This is like in the Blair Witch. I like those things in the Blair Witch. Therefore, I like this.
Yeah.
Also, I do believe that the ending sequence is wholly unique. And I think the whole sequence with Norma and even the whole ending is very inventive, and I liked it quite a bit. So I'm happy with this one. So thank you for bringing it to the show.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I had a feeling that you would, and I had a feeling that I sort of expected a few criticisms. I did anticipate you being quite as disappointed when the camera changed, but hey, if like me, it was kind of made up for it with the ending. It is very inventive, and I thought that's what when people complain that horror isn't scary anymore, horror isn't original anymore, and everything's derivative. I think that that's what they're getting at. What they need to do is seek out these sorts of stories. Maybe watch more horror, and you'll find, because that's literally how I found it. We were looking for some horror movie to watch that we hadn't stumbled upon before, and I stumbled upon it. I guess people who are complaining that there's nothing new under the sun aren't looking very hard. And at the same respect, they did do something wrong in this marketing, in the grand amount of marketing that there was for this film. The 4-year slow burn of marketing, I didn't see it. Like, it could have been so much more successful. It made $8 million back on its initial $1 million investment. That's okay. Like, the figure's a little better than me. Like, is 8-1 an okay return?
Yeah, that would have been, let's say, given the guerrilla marketing, I bet you there's no way they paid overall all in, then reshoots. I don't think that marketing would have cost them any more than a few $1,000s, honestly. Whatever it would take to produce the shorts. And then once everything was crowdfunded, and they made like 1.4 million. And so I think they more than covered their costs, 8 times the budget. They're in the green for sure.
Okay, good. That's what because I'm like, I don't know if 8's a good return. It's like, you got to make your money back and then half at least to actually cover it, right?
Yeah.
And your marketing is going to take up twice your budget usually, I think. But
yes, you're
either
right.
way,
You're right. Yes.
Yeah. So they did very well, but it could have been so much more. I've never heard anyone talk about this film, even Mike Flanagan fans. So I don't know what cracks this has fallen in. I don't know if people are going to be discovering it on Amazon properly, because they might be like, man, another found footage thing I don't want to watch. some like fake documentary and skip it. And I wish that they knew. So here we are to ruin the end, to introduce you whole cloth to Tyrion, incubus of the North, so that you too can enjoy the film.
So what do we got next for him?
Coming up next, we have another film that deals a lot with the shadows. And I love the cinematography of this because it is such a dark little film and dark in feelings. We're going to talk about The Lodge.
Yeah, I'm excited to cover this one on the show. Liz and I tend to bring up The Lodge occasionally, and it dawned on me, you know, we obviously both like this movie. Why don't we do it for the show if we're going to keep bringing it up every 4 episodes?
We recently watched Oz Perkins' latest film, Keepers, and it reminded me quite a lot of The Lodge, just with, you know, it is in an A-frame sort of cottagey looking place. But it's that play on dark and light that I really enjoyed so much, and it made me want to rewatch The Lodge again. So it's perfect timing for me. The Lodge is technically a Christmas film, so whatever, it's fine. We got to get, you know, some cottagey feeling somehow. I mean, we could always go to Camp Crystal Lake. You're going to be in your cottage before too long, so I think it's kind of fitting.
Also, the Christmas aspect is such a small bit of it. It's fine. It totally works. And also, yes, I will be at my cottage like very, very shortly, in just in a few weeks probably. So, you know, it's good to go to a lodge and see how they do it in the cold weather, because I can't go to mine when it's cold out.
You got to keep it like a sauna in there to like fend off the horrific amounts of snow that end up in the backcountries here in Northern Ontario.
Yeah, and then of course when you inevitably have to like leave for some reason, and all that heat just blows out the fucking door, and you're like, oh.
What a waste.
But we're not going to waste your time any longer. I'm Wes Knipe.
And I'm Typical Lydia.
And you've been listening to Dead Air. If you like this show, you can find more episodes and other content on splatterpictures.net, Spotify, or wherever you download podcasts. We also upload all episodes to YouTube now, if you'd prefer to listen that way. You can find us across social media like Instagram, X, and TikTok, and the show is edited by Lydia Peaver and hosted by Lydia Peaver and me, Wes Knight. We'll see you next time.